before I give you my position by position breakdown and let you know who I think is going to make the 53-man roster in 2019, I thought we could have a little bit of fun and go from 1960 to today. Who would make the best 53-man roster for the Buffalo Bills? Welcome to Leaves Talk. My name is Joe, and welcome as we look back into the history books of the Buffalo Bills franchise and go over who would make the best 53-man roster using every single Buffalo Bills player ever to play for the Buffalo Bills. Again, thank you for joining my Leaves Talk. Before we do that, I want to remind everyone, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Like this video, leave a comment. I'm sure there are going to be names on this list of the top 53-man roster for the Buffalo Bills that a lot of you will disagree with. Maybe you think I forgot about a name. Maybe I did forget about a name. Leave it in the comment section below. I'll let you know, oh, if I forgot that name or if I didn't forget that name and just was like, you know what, I like him, but he didn't fit the list. So, again, subscribe, hit that like button, leave a comment. Not only do we have you covered on Bills news like this, we also keep you covered on injury news, free agents, OTAs, camp, into the regular season where we do live play-by-play reaction for every single Buffalo Bills game. So again, hit that subscribe button, like this video, hit that notification bell, follow me on Twitter, description in the link in the description below. So again, I look forward to seeing you there as well. So let's get into the greatest 53-man roster for the Buffalo Bills. Now, a lot of you might think that I'm going to just go over the best 53 players to ever put on the red and blue for the Buffalo Bills. That's not true. I am going to break this down just like you would a 53-man roster going into the regular season. My next video series is going to break down position by position and let you know who in that position I think is going to make the 53-man roster. I'm going to go over that crowded wide receiver room. I'm going to go over that crowded tight end room, that crowded running back room. I'm going to tell you who's going to make it, what tough cuts we have to make. Guys, if you think 2019 is going to be a tough year as far as what cuts are going to happen, I just had to make some pretty big cuts going all the way back to 1960 to today, talking about the Buffalo Bills and who would be the best 53-man roster for the Buffalo Bills. So let's get underway here. Let's start with the quarterback position. I think there's no doubt in anyone's mind who the number one quarterback would be on the Buffalo Bills. You're talking about probably the best quarterback to ever play for Buffalo. I think it's an obvious statement. Led us to 4 straight Super Bowls. Talking about Jim Kelly. Just again, there's nothing you can say that hasn't already been said about Jim Kelly. His heart, his toughness, the way he's embraced the city of Buffalo. Might not have originally started out that way, but the way he's embraced the city, has loved the city, and we loved him back. You know, just found out that he's cancer free still, so that is amazing. That's awesome to hear. And he would be the number one guy that you would want going into that huddle for the Buffalo Bills. But who's the number 2 guy? Who do we like as our second string quarterback? If Jim Kelly gets nicked up, who do you want in there? Well, I'm going to go back to when Buffalo first became a team, 1960s. Okay, I'm going back to the 1960s. We have won two championships in our history, both in the AFL, both led by the same quarterback, and that is Jack Kemp, maybe known more in political circles than for his NFL game, but he has NFL game, and he showed it off for the Buffalo Bills in the early to mid 60s, and he led us to 2 consecutive AFL championships. We can't forget that. Still holds, I think he's still 3rd all-time, maybe 4th all-time in rushing TDs for a quarterback behind Otto Graham and Steve Young. Not bad company. Now, I know in recent years there's been more running quarterbacks, so maybe he's fallen back a little bit more, but he is still up in there in that category as far as rushing touchdowns for a quarterback. Jack Kemp would be my second string quarterback. Do you agree with the quarterback position? 1, Jim Kelly, 2, Jack Kemp. Let me know in the comment section below. Now here, in the next position, we might start a little bit debate in the comment section. Let me know what you think. The running back position, I think everyone would have these 2 running backs as their 1, 2. I have my top 3 running backs actually in this list, but everyone would have the same 2, 1, and 2. It's just a matter of order, right? What order would you have these 2 running backs in? My order goes number 1, O.J. Simpson. I know for all of his off the field stuff, he can obviously say there's no way you have him as the number 1 wide running back, right? But you're talking about the only running back in history, to run for 2,000 yards or more in a 14-game season. Okay, now I'm not saying it wouldn't have happened eventually if they would have stayed to 14 games instead of 16, but the fact still remains he is the only running back in history. He's the first running back ever to rush for over 2,000 yards, and he's the only running back in history to do it with only 14 games. He revolutionized the position, and he has to be respected for that. Off-field stuff be darned. We can talk about that. We can talk about personal issues all you want. But his on-field stuff, that's all we're looking at here for this 53-man roster. And he earns that number 1 running back start for his on-the-field efforts for the Buffalo Bills. And then, of course, number 2, you're going to have Thurman Thomas. You can't say much more about Thurman Thomas other than what we already know. One of the best all-purpose yards back to ever play in the NFL. I believe that if, I feel bad for Thurman Thomas. You talk about a guy who, when he was in college, wasn't even the best running back on his team for 2 years because he was playing behind Barry Sanders. You talk about a guy who on most teams in all-time record books for their team would be the best running back hands down, but he happens to play for the same team that had O.J. Simpson just 2 years previously. So, gets a little bit of bad rap, but number 2 ain't bad here. Talking about Thurman Thomas, the Terminator, and then number 3, you gotta go Fred Jackson would be that X factor, if you will. If you're looking for our third down running back, it would be Fred Jackson. So let me know if you agree with that down in the comment section below. Now we go to the fullback position. I think the number 1 fullback for the Buffalo Bills would have to be Cookie Gilchrist. Again, Cookie Gilchrist played early 60s, just a tough guy, not afraid to get a little dirty, not afraid to make that big block, and he did that plenty of times for the Buffalo Bills back in the 60s. And that's why I think he would have to be your starting fullback. If you're looking for a backup fullback, you have to go with Corey McIntyre, who played in the mid to late 90s. I thought he was a great fullback for his time, and again, had a lot of good blocks for guys like Thurman Thomas and others. So that would be my backup fullback. So again, do you agree with that list? We're going to get into another position here that I'm sure is going to lead to some controversy, and that's going to be the wide receiver position, okay? I broke it down. I have 6 wide receivers. I've picked 6 Buffalo Bills wide receivers that would be on the 53-man roster. Let me know what you think of the wide receiver position. Who would you give it to? Here are my 6, and again, feel free to disagree in the comment section below. I would have Andre Reed, of course, as the number 1 wide receiver. Did great with Jim Kelly. We would have that connection back, and I'm sure they would do great again. Number 2 would be Eric Moulds. Some people might forget this, but Jim Kelly and Eric Moulds actually played together. Jim Kelly's last year was in 96. Eric Moulds' first year was in 96. They did actually play together, but Eric Moulds is my number 2 wide receiver for the Buffalo Bills. And then number 3, a little bit more recently, Stevie Johnson. I tell you what, the man made Revis Island look like a joke, okay? That was the one guy, the one wide receiver that would always make Darryl Revis look bad. And I loved watching it because everyone loves Darryl Revis, and Darryl Revis is a great player. I'm not taking anything away from him. But you can tell how good a player is when he plays against the best in the league. And Stevie Johnson, when he played against the best in the league, tore him up. That's why Stevie Johnson would be a number 3 wide receiver. You look at the bench, and it's getting still just as stacked on that bench. Number 4, my number 4 title will be Albert Dubenian, from the 60s, 1960 and 1968, was part of the original Buffalo Bills team. Still holds some AFL records today that will never be broken because the AFL no longer exists. Then you talk about James Lofton and Eric Moulds. Those would be my 3 backups. Now, I did look at Don Beebe too. Thought maybe you can add him to this list, but he just didn't cut it. I didn't know who I would put him in over. So you talk about James Lofton, Eric Moulds, and and then Albert Dubenian as my 3 backups to Eric Moulds, Andre Reed, and Stevie Johnson. Again, I know that might strike up some controversy, so let me know in the comment section who you like, who should have made this list, who should make the 53-man roster over those 6 wide receivers that I just listed. Then you look at tight ends, and my first tight end, and this might be a surprise as well, But my first tight end, we're talking back in those 60s again. You're talking Ernie Warlick from the Buffalo Bills from 62 to 65 was part of those AFL championship teams. So you gotta give him credit where credit's due. I led the team in receptions, I believe, one of those years, if not both those years, when you're talking about the AFL championship. So again, really like what he did for the Bills in those seasons. And number 2, you gotta go Pete Metzelaars. He has to be tight end number 2. Again, played during the Kelly era. Maybe got a lot of receptions just due to that. Definitely was open on the field when you talk about the wide receivers that were on the field at that time. But he was effective. He was a good blocking tight end as well for Thurman Thomas. So you have to put him at the tight end position. I have him as tight end number 2. Move to that offensive line. Now, this is where things get a little tricky, right? And a lot of you might not know some of these names. I understand that. A lot of you might not know who these offensive linemen are. Some of them played in the 60s, but they are Buffalo Bills greats, and some of them are even on the Wall of Fame, so you want to remember those names. My starting offensive line will look a little bit like this. We would have Will Warford at offensive tackle, played from 86 to 92. Billy Shaw, again, on that Wall of Fame. Billy Shaw played with the Buffalo Bills from 61 to 69. Our center, of course, would be Kent Hall. And then offensive guard would be Joe. I'm going to mess up this last name. I always mess up this last name, but he is also on the Wall of Fame. Joe DeMilor. Again, I'm going to mess it up. Someone will let me know in the comment section below. And then offensive tackle will be Stu Barber from 61 to 69. You want to know who my backup offensive line is? I have that right here for you. My backups would be Jim Richler, Eric Wood, Jeff Wright, and John Fina. So those are my backup offensive linemen. For my starters, let me know if you disagree or agree with those. I was thinking about maybe Jason Peters could be in there as well. But I really think Jason Peters was a lot stronger in Philly than he was in Buffalo. Even though I thought he did pretty well in Buffalo, I think he became a lot stronger, more of a Pro Bowl type tackle when he played for the Eagles. So that's why I left him off this list. But let me know if you would add him, or let me know if you would add anyone else in the comment section below. So now we go over to the other side of the ball, right? We go over to the defensive side of the ball. And this is where the Bills have made their names in years past. So this is the side list that I'm sure a lot of you are looking forward to, because, man, we've had some good defenses in our history, and that makes this list all the tougher to make up. We're going to start defensive end. We're going to start with probably, arguably the best player in Buffalo Bills history, and that's going to be defensive end Bruce Smith. Man, you can't argue. You're talking about a guy who had 200 sacks in his career, currently the sack leader in the NFL, and there's a reason for that. He could get after the quarterback, and he did it quite often. So that's why you have to have Bruce Smith as your key defensive end for the Buffalo Bills all 53-man roster. You look at the defensive tackle position, I'm going to go with my guy, a guy that everyone who have watched this show I love, and that's Kyle Williams at the first defensive tackle position. Kyle Williams just has an engine that would never die. He would always be coming after you. He wouldn't stop until the whistle blew. So that's why you gotta love what Kyle Williams added to the Buffalo Bills. The next would be Tom Sestak from 62 to 68. Tom Sestak was a mauler in the inside, and we just have to have him here as one of our best defensive tackles of all time. He had a lot of sacks during his career. Again, look up the name from 1962 to 1968. Again, I don't want to leave anybody out. And then at the other defensive end position, I'm talking about another guy who played in the 60s, and that's Ron McDowell from 63 to 1970 on the other defensive end side. Again, a mauler there as well. A guy who would really get after the quarterback, really sealed off that edge, and was very disciplined. If you watch him, he was very disciplined in his craft. He was very good at bringing down the running back when he would get the ball in the backfield. So I really like Ron McDowell from 63 to 70. Now you look at the defensive line and you say, who are your backups then? Who do you have as a backup? You have to have Art Still, Phil Hansen as my defensive ends, and then Pat Williams, big boy Pat Williams as defensive tackle. You got him in there as well, backing up these guys in the defensive line. So that would be my defensive line. Let me know if you agree who you would put in there instead of some of these guys. Again, I know there's some good names out there who I'm leaving out, and if you want to talk about good names that I'm leaving out, the next unit has a lot of those, and that's that linebacker unit. I love our linebackers all through and through. I mean, you look at the team today, Matt Milano, Trent Edmonds, and Sean Alexander. What a great trio But you talk about the Bills' history with linebackers, man, it's like Penn State. It's like linebacker you over here in Buffalo. It's really awesome to see these great linebackers. You talk about Mike Stratton would be on my first line. Again, a guy who played from 62 to 72, 10 years with the same team, played his heart out every single game, and you would see that every time you watch him on the field. And then Darryl Talley. What can you say about Darryl Talley that hasn't already been said? One of the best Buffalo Bills players of all time. Probably one of the best Buffalo Bills players not to be in the Hall of Fame. Loved Darryl Talley. Love his heart. Loved the way he could get after the quarterback, bringing those blitzes from the linebacker position, but also the way he covered downfield. Cornelius Bennett, another one right there, looking at that Hall of Fame saying, man, maybe he should be in part of some of the greatest Buffalo Bills teams of all time. And then Shane Conlon, again, 87 to 92. He's part of the Super Bowl teams as well, and he would tear down the house, and I really liked him. I think he was underrated when you play with a guy like Cornelius Bennett, like a Darryl Talley. He was really underrated as far as how good of a linebacker he was. Go to the backups. I got London Fletcher, Ray Bentley, and then no, those are my two. So I have London Fletcher and Ray Bentley, both my backup linebackers before we move into the cornerback position. I know at linebacker, you can think of maybe Takeo Spikes and say, man, maybe Takeo Spikes deserved to be on the list, but I didn't add Takeo Spikes just because of how long he was in the NFL and how short of a time he played in Buffalo. I think he only spent 3 seasons with the Buffalo Bills, played over 10 years in the NFL. Really made his name as a Washington Redskins linebacker, so that's why I didn't add him to this list. But let me know if you would add him at Takeo Spikes to the linebacker list or not for your top 53-man roster for the Buffalo Bills. Going to the cornerback position now, going to those defensive backs, another big position for the Buffalo Bills in our history, especially during those Super Bowl years. You're talking about Nate Odoms. He would be one of my starters, and Dutch Bird from 64 and 1970. Those would be my 2 starters at the cornerback position. However, I would also consider Robert James and Steve Freeman, and they would probably be my backups along with Charles Romes. And the surprise maybe that some of you wouldn't see, a current player for the Buffalo Bills, Tre'Davious White. Let's put him in there. Guy who got robbed of Rookie of the Year. Guy who had a good second year. I know this is only his 3rd year, but I think he is going to go down as one of the best Buffalo Bills corners of all time. Now, while we pay him after his 5th-year option's up, who knows? But if we do, he might go down as one of the best of all time. We know what happened to Stephon Gilmore, and he was a guy you can consider in this list as well. But I think Tre'Davious White could become one of the best Buffalo Bills corners of all time, and I have him on this list. So let me know in the comment section if someone on the current team would make the All-53 team. Who would it be? Would it be LaShawn McCoy? Would it be Tre'Davious White? Would it be Josh Allen? Who would you want from the current team and say, no, he's one of the best 53 players in Buffalo Bills history, or he would make the 53-man roster? Maybe you have McCoy over Jackson. Who knows? But let me know in the comment section what you think. And then you go into the safety position, and we have 4 safeties for you. Let me know which ones you like the best. We have George Symes from 63 to 69. Henry Jones. I was a huge Henry Jones fan from 1991 till 2000. Mark Kelso, and then Tony Green. Those would be my 4 safeties. I personally have Henry Jones and George Symes as our starting safeties, but really out of those 4, you can't go wrong. And then all that's left is special teams. I think special teams is pretty simple. I think it's pretty cut and dry who does what on special teams. Your kicker is going to be Steve Christie. Some of you might argue Scott Norwood. I know that a lot of you might still be upset with Scott Norwood, but if you look at his overall career stats, not that bad. But I think Steve Christie was just dead on accurate so much throughout his career. You cannot say he is not the best kicker in Bills history. Brian Moorman would be our punter. The punt returner would, of course, be Steve Tasker, right? One of the only special teamsmen who should be considered for the Hall of Fame. And then our kick return guy would be Terrence McGee. You can also add Terrence McGee in as a corner as well if you would like. But that is my 53 53-man roster, the best 53-man roster in Buffalo Bills history. So let me know what you think in the comment section below. What names did I forget? I know a lot of you are going to give me crap and say, oh, what about this guy? Oh, what about this guy? Oh, you had this guy here? I know it's coming. I look forward to it. I look forward to discussing it with you. So again, hit that subscribe button, like this video, and leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Who would be on your of all-time 53-man roster for the Buffalo Bills? I look forward to breaking down position by position soon and letting you know who I think is going to make the 53-man roster in 2019. So hit that subscribe button so you can be ready for that. Hit that notification bell, and then follow me on Twitter. My Twitter link is in the description below. I look forward to talking to you all soon. Until I do,